Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to another episode of Facts and Fatherhood. I happen to have the opportunity to be your host, and as I always tell you, I'm always glad and grateful to have this opportunity to be on this journey called fatherhood with all of you. So you can see the background a lot different than where I normally am, but that is because I have to be miles and miles away from my house in this little town called Bellevue, Nebraska. Now, I was trying to figure out, I just didn't know. I was trying to figure out, did they have any green grass? And so I found out, that they do have green grass. You just have to be here in the spring and the summer. Because right now, the only green grass I saw was downtown and it was turf. Okay. So I'm just saying, but it's a nice town. And so why you may be asking, like, why am I here? Well, on the set today, I happen to have the opportunity to be sitting with my youngest son. He is based here in Nebraska. He and his brother are both serving in the Air Force, and this happens to be where he is based out of. And the reason why I am here, as you can see behind me, we are sitting in a nursery. As a matter of fact, there's a little name on the wall in this nursery. We're sitting in the nursery at their home. What a great thing. Why? Because a few days ago, I had one of the probably greatest privileges in my whole entire existence to actually witness. Got here a little bit behind the 8 ball. He didn't wait for me, but he got here a few hours before we arrived. Mr. Ionis arrived, and but still, it one of the just remarkable things to me. I heard all these talk about a grandfather and what it would feel like and all of those kinds of things. And I don't know. I feel like maybe what they told me fell very short of the way it actually feels to actually experience this, because this little fella is probably one of the most perfect things I have seen in my entire life. Okay. That's the best way I can describe it. I've talked to he that to be out saying he was born and talk about just being like uh, cloud nine is too low. But anyway, just happy to have the opportunity to talk to this new dad, this what we're going to call rookie dad. Now, you want to know, why did I do this? Okay, because I'm explaining the reality of why I have all these titles titled the way they are. Why? Because this young man played football. Okay. Yeah. And he played football, and at one point in time where he knew what it was like to be a rookie. Well, he's back in that class again. He's an opportunity to be a rookie, but this time he's not a rookie football player. He is a rookie dad. And so we're going to get into a little conversation with him about the reality of what it is. Again, we're so excited and so happy to have all of you. Listen, you see what the little deal is telling you, scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. It is telling you to like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to ask you to do that because I keep saying I'm still waiting on some of y'all to do it. Like, share, and subscribe. We are just producing some content here for you that we think is going to be very helpful. As I tell you all the time, I don't feel like I have the answers to everything, but I feel like a lot of the things that I've learned over the course of being a father, trial and error, mistakes, and all those kind of things, growth opportunities and all that, all those things that I learned, I feel like will be beneficial and helpful to somebody on their journey, as well as aspiring fathers in their role and their responsibility to just hang in there. Okay. This happens to be one of the most rewarding periods, I would say, in my entire existence of fatherhood, because I told y'all before on several podcasts, you're probably gonna get tired of hearing me saying this, but I believe very, very, very much that my wife and I have been given the privilege by the Father to be able to bring into this world and raise some of what I believe are some of the best people on the face of the planet. Now, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but okay, it is what it is. I feel like that we were given that privilege. And I tell y'all all the time, these are my favorite people. And that just is what it is. Okay. And so I wanted you to have the opportunity to meet them over the course of this podcast. And that is what this content for this month of February, which is called Family Matters Month, that we have been just kind of producing. You've already seen the conversation with my daughter. That thing was hilarious. Okay. She is such a character. But we had a great conversation. The conversation with my oldest son is going to be coming up very soon. But right now we're in the room with my youngest boy. Now, before we get into what we get into, listen, I want to keep you reminded. We got some things that are coming your way. That website is just about ready. I think they told me in about 7 days it'll be ready. That website, you'll be able to go onto that website, be able to have access to some really good content. There's some blogs that's going to be on there. There's some articles about fatherhood that's going to be on there, not just for me. Things on there indicated by different experts and all that will be beneficial and helpful to you. And this little resource that we have right here that on the screen, this thing right here, I believe is going to be very helpful to fathers everywhere. It's based on the scripture that says, like arrows are in the hands of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And so this is called like arrows in my hand. Okay. And there's certain things that the Father showed me over the course of writing this particular work. Referring back to how I've been through some personal things that I kind of share with the growth opportunities, the errors, the mistake, all those kind of things are in the book. And I think it's going to be very, very helpful. Right. Oh boy, that happens. There's actually another book that's going to be coming out, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that one later on, as well as we're looking forward to later on this summer. We're going to be having a men's conference, and we're going to have a special episode of Facts and Fatherhood that'll be coming from the stage, because we're going to have a panelist on the stage at the men's conference, and we're going to be sharing a lot of things there. And so I think it's going to be very, very helpful and very, very beneficial to you. However, we want to have opportunity to hear from the new dad, this airman here, and you've been now in the Air Force now 3 years, right? Yeah. A little bit more than
just over 3 years.
Yeah, a little over 3 years. It was one cold November. We had actually just moved from a little spot that we had been in for a long time, because they were little children, and we moved into the house. And I think he had an opportunity to stay in the house maybe a week or two, maybe at the most. Yeah. And then he was sending to BMT for his military here in Senate. And wow, that 3 years passed by quickly. And I know sometimes when people say it passed by quickly, it was quick to them, but might not necessarily been as quick to the person that's been going through it. And so he's been in the military, and I'm gonna let you tell him tell you a little bit more about what he does. I mean, now listen, there are some things that he could tell you, and then there's some things he can't tell you. I don't want to be responsible for him telling you something he's not supposed to, because I don't want to. He already knocked on my door one time. I ain't finna get though.
Yeah. So my role in the military is I'm an MP, military police primarily, secondary security. So whatever that entails, whether that's aircraft, whether that's just base defense. My role is protection, ironically. And I chose a more conducive career to being a father. There's a lot of value, I believe, a lot of discipline. I believe that is going to help me in my journey as a father. But what do I know? I'm a rookie.
Well, this is him. And so when we were on the session with your sister, is we talked about the reality of there's two passages Father was kind of teaching me, because I remember when his brother was born, that's the first one I held, and it was so funny and so surreal to me, because there was a moment where we were at the and I called myself trying to be tough. I was trying to be tough. Oh, I was trying to be tough. I had made my I had psyched myself out and was like, boy, you gonna hold it together. You're gonna be good. You're gonna be tough. And so, but there was a moment that was so surreal. And I remember when his brother was born, and I remember the way I held him and the way I in that moment. I know things going through my mind. There was so many emotions. I was feeling all at the same time. I was feeling about the future. I was feeling great and happy and excited. I was concerned because of the all kind of things were going through my head at that moment. And it was the way I held him and the way I looked at him and the way I talked to the Father, both internally and externally, when I held him. And it was so surreal because that was when we were at the hospital where I was observing my son, holding his son. And I remember that moment, I went right back to that moment. Like it was like going back in time to that moment that I was holding his brother. And I said, oh my gosh, in my mind, I was like, I could almost tell him verbatim what he is thinking right now. I'm gonna tell him verbatim what is going through his head or what's going through his mind right now, but I chose not to do that. And I just want in it, just kind of take us back to that moment and just the reality of it just kind of, sinking in that, this is your son.
Yeah. So I think, you know, like you said, you're determined in your head, like, I'm gonna hold it together. I'm tough. I'm gonna be hard, in this moment. Um, and I say, I kept up the act or whatnot till the nurse handed them to me or whatnot. And for a second there, I'm like, yeah, I still got this. I still got this. And you feel almost unprepared. Um, and I don't mean unprepared as in I didn't use any resources or that I didn't look for knowledge on how to be a father. It was simply the feeling of, being unprepared or whatnot. Um, out of that, it's like I can't get back commitment, and this is somebody that's gonna depend on me. But not just on me for provision, but instruction also. And if I'm gonna be a teacher, that means I have to be taught. And so all of those emotions hit me at the same time, and they just presented themselves in tears. And it was a beautiful moment or whatnot. Holding my son for the first time. But then reality sets, and all those things that led to those tears are still your reality. Like he still has to come home with me. He's still gonna depend on me. And I have a lifelong commitment to be there for this child or whatnot. So it got a little overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. And it's overwhelming. It's a moment. I mean, in that moment, I'm a type of person. I'm very introspective, and every now and then, I take inventory. There's a period too much in my life where I will take just kind of time to just really kind of look at my life and kind of examine, where I am, where I want to be, all those kind of different things like that. So I'm very introspective in that way. So I try to keep a great awareness of both what are my strengths and my opportunities. I try to keep an awareness of that. But the moment that I'm looking this child in the face and saying, okay, this is not, because I had godchildren. This is not my godson. I'm not going to be able to play with him a little bit and then send him home. Okay. We're not just just gonna play spend the night, what you got, and that's it. No, I'm going to have to feed. I'm going to have to take care and make sure, when he gets sick. At this point, I am solely responsible for the life of this child. And that was a moment that I became more aware of, again, both. I'm aware of my strengths, but in that moment, I became more aware of any liabilities that I had in my entire life. It was a greater awareness of it. It's like, oh man, business has really picked up now. Of course, I understand. I know this on the way, and there's preparations and things that I make in my life and adjustments that I make, knowing that, so I got 9 months to do that. All is there, and then you have to realize that this is the situation we were in. The situation we were in was we had one that came, and literally 12 months later, we had two that came right behind the one that we only had that 1 year of experience with. And it was so surreal. And like I said, in that moment, watching him again, it was like, it can't be tough. I can't, because again, I'm feeling all these emotions, not only of having my son, and now I'm watching my son hold his son, come to the realization that he has a child and a son that he's solely responsible for. And then also watching the reality that this is actually the arrival of the next generation of Wilson, because he's, his boy. So, he's carrying a name forward. And legacy and all those kind of different things like that. And then I was also having a moment, went back and was like, man, I wish, out of all the things, I wish that my dad would have actually been able to be here and alive to witness and to see Cookie Man bring bring his son into the world. And so I think, like you made a point earlier about the training and the discipline and all those kind of different things like that, that went into that moment, or that you considered kind of leading up to that moment. And of course, in your profession and in your field, there are things that you have to, in your training or development, they teach you situational awareness and all those kind of different things like that. And they kind of share with you the reality that you cannot necessarily develop a fake scenario for like every run into, but the basic things that you need to know. There are certain basic things that are applicable in every single situation that you will find yourself engaged in. And so, I mean, now, you've had a few days now, of the experience of being a new dad. And so tell us about that. I mean, what we look at? I mean, is it more than you expected?
Yeah, I mean, more than I expected. A lot more responsibility, a lot less sleep.
Y'all know about that, don't
you? Right now, as far as what can be said and the influence I have on him, there's only words that can be spoken over him. Of course, he doesn't understand too much right now. He's not really comprehending anything or whatnot. But for myself, I think it's human nature to kind of pull on anything that's giving you success or whatnot. So whether that's in your career, whether that's, I don't know, in the gym, in a hobby or whatnot, you kind of pull on things that have made you successful or whatnot. And so, I mentioned earlier about all, the discipline, the value, the stuff like that. That's made me successful in my career. And quickly, I want to revert back to those things, well, I could just use this tactic and, he'll stop crying and, maybe if I, spot sleep here, I'll be good enough. And very quickly you realize that your career is not your kid, right? And although although the puzzle piece looks like it fits, uh, but I am honored. It's a learning experience because I do believe, although it might not always work as far as one to the other, um, the value of family and those who are intentional about their family usually find success in everything else that they do or whatnot. I have a mentor up here or whatnot, and I, I'm very close to him because very rarely do you see men who are in love with their family. So, like, this dude isn't just like, oh, I'm just a dad. People bring up things that they're keep out of his mouth. It's his family or whatnot, and that's obviously a sign he's in love with his family. So I'm very grateful that um, I was taught to use resources and I was taught to use some type of critical thinking and not just see this dude as like a homebody or somebody who just can't stop talking about his family, but instead recognize that he has something that he can give me and he has something that he can teach me or whatnot.
Yeah, that's a big thing. One of the things I tried to do. This is one thing I realized as a young father coming along, because when we had our children, we were babies. That's the reality. We were babies. We were 19 and 23. So, I mean, we were babies. Okay. And, there's a lot that we had learned. There was a lot, more that we had to learn. It was at some point after you all came into the world, especially when y'all came so quickly. I'm talking about 3 people. I mean, we got 1 and then boom, it's 3, like right up on us, right? And one of the things I realized real early to develop myself as an individual. Now, that's not being selfish. That's just saying that in order for me to actually be able to do what I need to do, I asked the Father. That's what I said. I meant to mention it. Meant to mention that earlier. I asked the Father, I need you to help me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know. I play dad with the godchildren and all that kind of stuff like that, and we have fun. This is different. I need you to teach me, to show me, to guide me, to direct me on how to do, right? The Bible says, if any man lacks wisdom, let me ask. So here I am. I'm asking him and direct me, in the ways that I needed to go. And so as I began to do that, I began to find different principles in the past in the scripture. And one of those principles that I found was from Ephesians chapter 6. And it says, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Right? The Hebrew Bible says, do not irritate your children. Right? But bring them up and give them the Lord's kind that we're familiar with because we've received discipline. But then when you start to understand and realize stuff like, even the passage talks about the rod of correction, when you start to realize that I had never been told this, I had never been taught this, but I discovered through just developing myself that correction didn't always look the same. I said this while I was talking with your sister, and she brought this thing up, and I was like, if these boys are going to do the same thing to me, because the she said, because there were times I didn't spank them unless I told them that, hey, if you do such, you're going to get a spanking, right? Now, his sister claims that I only spanked them about 5 times. I don't think It was 5 times. I think it was a little bit more than 5 times.
No, I think it was. I can only remember 3.
They see now this number is this
I
number.
I can only remember 3 in my life.
This number is really tiny right now. I know in my mind it was
and maybe it was more, but I know if 5 is the number 5 or whatnot,
say it.
But we got the point.
I didn't spare the rod. Okay? I just want you to understand that I didn't spare the rod because Bob said spare the rod for a child. But what I realized is every time the scripture speaking of the rod, it's not talking about what's happening physically, right? There were times where the correction looked like, oh, okay, well, this is what you're gonna do. Fine. Well, we're gonna sit down for about 2-3 hours, and we're gonna have a lecture conversation about what we have going on, because the goal is not for you to recognize, or the goal is not for you to dwell on my disappointment, because here's the reality, right? That's not enough, right? It's not enough for you to know that I'm disappointed. It's more important that we move beyond that point to look at why I'm disappointed. But then I also want to know, what did you learn, right? What kind of lesson did you get out of? What are you thinking about what you're doing? Are you thinking about what you're saying, right? And are you really considering the potential consequences of the action that you're getting ready to take? That's my duty. My duty is to help you to really like think about and say, hey, if I do this, and I always was telling this, guys, if you whatever you pick, you get the opportunity to pick your action. You do not get to choose the consequences. There is already a certain set of consequences that's already attached to what it is you're about to do. I need you to think about that for a moment. I need you to really weigh the potential. Is this what you really want to do? Because you got to understand, picking whatever one thing you pick, you're also picking everything else that goes along with it. And the reason why I did that was because the Father said to me, you have to father them the way I father you, right? Listen, we had so many conversations. And in those conversations, the Father reminded me at one point in time, he says to me, you cannot be disappointed in a child being a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things, right? You cannot expect a child to be anything but a thing. Now, I'm disappointed when a man is a child, right? Because at this point, you're supposed to have put away childish things. But if you are dealing with a child that is a child, you can expect the child to think like a child, to reason like a child, to speak like a child. And if you don't, what you end up doing is you end up missing the reality that whatever the Father has given you to do, he gives you the grace to do, right? So I learned that there is a grace to be a parent. There is an empowerment that comes from our relationship with the Father that gives us the ability to effectively parent. There's a grace to parent. And if I don't tap into the grace to parent, then I'm left a victim of the frustration of parenting. And I parent through my frustration versus parenting through the grace that is available for me to do so. Well, now, when you hear those words, what does it mean to you when you hear those words that you have the grace to parent? You have the grace to be a father.
Well, first, that the Father has already provided a way of escape, and and equip me with everything I need as far as being a father, being a parent. Um, just because, you know, I I got to see actively um, that principle at work, that concept at work, the grace, the parent, but not only that, the grace of a parent or whatnot. And of course, you know, when you're younger, you don't see certain things or what. Back to what you were talking about when you were saying uh, you were teaching us critical thinking or whatnot. And I just point this out. When I first joined the military, it wasn't too hard for me, right? Because I already understood how to follow instruction. I already understood uh, accountability. And it's funny that you mentioned the the number of seconds. I can remember one in particular, and watch this. When you're on there, tell them people the truth. Drake, Midge, or whatnot.
Oh,
And Dak called us whatnot. And before the sentence was passed or whatnot, that he talked to us, and he goes, "Who started the fight?" We gave to run around, but it was found out that Drake started the fight. Now you tell the truth, but I remember Dad pulls me to the side. You go, Darren, why did you fight Drake back or whatnot? And I'm thinking, this is my time to shine. Like, I'm finna get off. You know what I mean? I'm finna tell why I had to respond. I had to react the way I reacted or whatnot. And I remember I went, Drake, meet me. That was my first few words. And right there, the conversation was over. And I was like, what? Right. And I remember you saying something. You were like, how could Drake make you? And I didn't get it. I'm like, what? What do you mean? How could Drake make me? He did X, Y, and Z. He made me fight him or whatnot. And of course, at the time, I didn't know the lesson was in accountability, right? Couldn't make me do anything, right? I had to be responsible for my own action. Sir Vionis will in his life, that's pivotal in my success or whatnot. Like I said, whether it's my career, whether it's my marriage, and I believe in my role as a father or whatnot. And me and Giannis, my family, were better for that or whatnot. And like I said, I know you do. But because I received that and I received that rod of correction or whatnot, and in that case, it wasn't thank you. But that's kind of an example of or example I can recall of that rod of correction or whatnot. And when we have conversation, we're all aware of our role success, right? In our development as adults or whatnot. With a hard time, an easy time. I mean, and I'm sure Drake will be able to to second what I'm in now. But, you know, the military grows fast or whatnot, and so you don't have time to be a child or to move on without you or whatnot. And especially when you see success in amongst your peers, there's something growing up that your peers didn't have or whatnot. And all of us have been able to attribute that to our parents. So,
see, here's the reality, and this is, and I'll tell you where that comes from. Right, when he brings the story again, the way now listen, I believe, and that's why I tell y'all again, I keep saying one thing else you keep hearing me say. Right, you keep hearing me say that one of the reasons why I'm unapologetic about the reference to scripture is because you know that for me, I ask wisdom to do this. I was given, I was pointed, I was directed toward the scripture. Okay, and so the scripture from there, the very first era of man, the scripture teach accountability, right? The 5 that you gave, right? Adam blamed it on the woman, right? Right. He asked Eve, "What did you do? What did you do?" The Eve blamed. I was tricked. That's what happened. When the father issued out what he issued out, everybody was responsible for what they did. This is to you, Adam. This is it. Everybody was responsible. Eve was not responsible for Adam. The serpent was not responsible for Eve, although that's what they did. They blamed, right? So when he told me, I need you to fire them like I fire you, it meant that I want you to take breaths that I'm giving to you. And in that conversation I had with sister, she talked about a lot. When you deal with them, you got to deal with them knowing, boy, that with you is the first step of reference point that they will utilize. That becomes sort of a trend. I don't want you to be afraid of me. Now I want you to have the that you're supposed to have, right? One of the things the children can tell you, you know, there was certain situations that would have happened. I try to be very intentional about not with them when I was super upset. And they knew they would know that I was disappointed. I was upset. But I tried not to be asked her because she brought up this thing. She was like, you know, sometimes would get upset and when you were upset, disappointed about like, all right, y'all go just go sit down or the room for a little minute and let me think. she revealed to me what was going on, you know, in her head, and sometimes the conversation that y'all were having, try to see what was going on there. What was that about? I'm asking all y'all because I didn't know this.
Because we gave the number of spankings that we received or whatnot, but you also mentioned like the lectures or whatnot that we received, and it was just brutal or whatnot.
Are you kidding me?
But I can't say, you know, like I said, you know, as we got older, amongst ourselves, we would start to figure out what we got in type of consequence that I got that I didn't understand exactly why I was getting. Like, it was kind of, well, I could argue my case for so long before I'm like, yeah, you did that one or whatnot. And that's something, I can incorporate, because as a parent, there's things that I can, you know, um, use, and then there's say, well, I'm gonna do that a different way or whatnot. But I found a lot of value in that. And the story I told earlier, like those are things that will be incorporated into my parenting approach.
Yeah, the grace, and the thing is, grace that you have to parent is as unique as the child that you have, right? You have to, that child at some point is going to reveal and share with you their personality, right? One of the things I never did, I tried my best, and Lord, if I did, I didn't know I did. It's one of the things I just didn't know. But I tried never to try to live. Tried not to live my dream through the right. There were things that they wanted to do. There were things they wanted to involve in, get into. I tried to invest in that reality, right? I was joking around, and I was like, man, it's basketball games, football games, and all this volleyball games. We were going back and forth to all these track meets, all this kind of stuff like that. At one point, we were doing all. And then the next thing you know, we traveling back up and down the road again to go to BMT graduation and what did they call it after BMT? Tech school graduation and all this stuff like that. And then it stopped. And then now all of a sudden again, we driving all the way down the road and all this kind of stuff like that because grandchildren are being born. And I said to my wife, I said, when I see them, I said, I'm gonna tell them, yo, our best to get to you all for stuff. Driving up and down the road all the time. But you know what? We love it. You don't mind, right? Because again, we'd always say those stuff. Sometimes your mother and I are wrong. However, it is never your responsibility to attempt to correct this, right? But in trying to get it right, there were moments and times where we had to go back and apologize and say, hey, this is what it is. We gotta learn and grow and develop. I that whenever that was a point in time where he I called him and I told him, hey man, Dad, I just want to tell you thank you because somehow best in the process of thinking about that, I really did the best I could. It made me realize that this is the same situation. When you really think about it, when you really consider it, at the end of the day, that's really all you can do is you do your best. Oh, that reminds me, fellas. And I'm going to make my best better. That's all you can be asked to do, is do the best you can, and then keep on giving yourself a bench make your best better. That point on, and from that point on, life changes, and way. And when you learn to have the grace as a parent, and excited that maybe in the same boat, in the same space. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of things that are. There's other people. Support is a huge thing, and that support being very transparent, that being saying, "Hey, I." Support that is available. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm excited about when we launched the website is there's a couple different things that we'll have at the moment. We'll be able to do that. If you're in a situation where maybe you're in between jobs and you're trying to get employment, we'll be able to connect you to the right resources and agencies to get you that support that you need to get you a job. And if you're not in our local vicinity, then the groups, and you need that help sometimes. And so there's so many things that we want to do beyond just the podcast. And then don't forget, available to you to be able to get that gear is going to be based all around my dear old dad. It's going to be in remembrance of him. He often saying, "Boy, it's gonna have that cup up, and it'll be on the outside of that coffee cup. Don't let the devil fool you." So anyway, I'm grateful. I'm happy, excited. We got a couple more days. We'll be have an opportunity to love on that beautiful young grandson. He's a good blend of both his parents, but he looks like him. I'm just saying that boy is Wilson. This saying, okay. That's what my dad be saying. That boy. That boy's bosom cookie, man. But nevertheless, thank you so much for being a part of us today. We're working on some of the things, y'all. We're going to be able to get some of these kinks out. Just keep on working with again for joining us. Thank you for being a part. Don't forget that my goal in our Facts and Fatherhood podcast is to love being a father. So till next time, thank you. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. We have so much more conversation that I'm going to be having with that oldest boy of mine, who just happens to call me his old man. All right, we'll break soon. And y'all help me congratulate the new father here. And appreciate him. Been watching him from a distance, from afar, but trying to give him the space to do the stuff that is his turn to do, because it's his turn to change the diapers, and his turn to do all those kind of different things like that. And I just want to say he's doing a great job. Appreciate you, man. You're doing good. Big ups. You did a great job. All right. So until next time, y'all, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Stay with us on this journey. I want to encourage you in your journey of fatherhood. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here on Facts and Fatherhood. And listen, we are going to see you